Welcome everyone to Natural Grocers Nutrition Education presentation. Today we are so pleased to introduce Erin Stokes, a naturopathic doctor and the medical director for MegaFood. And Bethany Davis is the director of social impact and advocacy for MegaFood. Welcome Erin and Bethany.
Hi everybody.
Hi everyone, thanks for having us. I'm so happy to be with Natural Grocers living here in Boulder, Colorado. It's one of my favorite spots.
And I like to visit.
We love to have Bethany when Bethany can come out and see us in Colorado.
Great, thank you for being here.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for Healthy Soil, Healthy Food, Healthy People. I'm Erin Stokes, naturopathic doctor and MegaFood medical director. And with me is my dear friend and colleague, Bethany Davis, who is our director of social impact and advocacy. Bethany, I'm so happy to get to chat with you today.
Me too. I'm thrilled. It's fun to do stuff with you, Erin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk a lot about soil health. And you know, soil health is something that people are talking a lot more about. And I think that it's really great to start with, why do we care about soil health? Why is it important? And what does it really do? So I thought maybe you and I could just go through some of the things that make healthy soil such an important thing. You know, we talk about the solution is literally under our feet. You know, we're walking on the solution. And so let's talk a little bit more about soil. We can start wherever you want.
Great. Yeah, soil. I would have to say that I didn't have a super clear understanding of how vital soil is and what kind of crisis we're really having around soil until about 5 years ago. And I was on a farm in Costa Rica, and somebody started explaining to me that globally, soil quality and health had been declining, and that it's harder to grow food in soil that's less healthy. And it really got me going. And so we've just been full in at MegaFood, learning everything we possibly can about soil health and how to support it. And that's what the whole regenerative agriculture movement is all about. The healthier soil is, the more nutrient dense the food that grows in it is, which makes sense.
It does. And it's something I think that's it's really worth reminding people about, though.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for minerals, the mineral content of the soil is going to be directly related to the mineral content of food. It's true for vitamins as well. But, you know, we think about minerals as coming from the earth, like calcium, magnesium, zinc, iron. And so one of the things I like to help people visualize is those roots from your food going into the soil and how important that soil health is to our food health.
Yes. And that is so exciting because obviously as a nutrition company, we're wanting everyone to be nourished. This is our big goal. This is what we care about. And so supporting soil health and soil regeneration directly supports people getting better nutrition from the food that they're eating. And that's just part of it. That's just part of what's happening. There's all kinds of other stuff that's happening with healthy soil. You'll see there, it absorbs and stores rain. So important. I didn't realize what a big issue runoff is, which is when soil is less healthy, it's more dry, it doesn't hold water as well. And so then when inputs are used, they kind of wash away and they get into the water system. And so I'm talking about inputs like pesticides and herbicides or fertilizers and things like that. So having really healthy soil, when it rains a lot, like even if it gets to a flooding level, it can soak up all of that water and hold on for when that might be a dry season or a drought. And then in those drier seasons, when there's a drought, it's got this deep store of water. So it's just so supportive to have really, really healthy soil because you have way less inputs and basically it's safer and less stressful to be a farmer when you have really, really healthy soil.
And I even think about the stability, you know, it says here help stabilize the climate. healthy soil is more stable, as you said, so there'll be less runoff like herbicides and pesticides, but it's also more stable in terms of like literally the ground that we're underneath or the homes that we're building on our soil. I mean, when you were talking about that, I initially saw images of California and some of those like big landslides that are happening and some of these places where the soil actually isn't very stable. And that's important too. Terra firma. I mean, it's the ground, it's our grounding.
And it literally helps stabilize the climate in that, I mean, go back to like 6th grade, like
Right.
class.
Yeah.
I mean, photosynthesis is literally drawing carbon out of the atmosphere and turning it into a plant. And so
that's right.
With growing food, and you're able to do more of it and draw down more carbon from the atmosphere, the healthier your soil is. So you're quite literally drawing down greenhouse gases from the atmosphere that are contributing to climate change. So it actually has the potential to reverse that. The better job we do with that, the healthier our soil, and yeah, the more carbon we draw down. So yes, all the things you said and even more.
Yes.
It helps us and is a major strategy for reversing climate change.
And as a naturopathic doctor, I really think of the soil is sort of the microbiome of the planet. You know, I think of like our own gut health and our own gut microbiome, and that's very individual, right? That's like my individual health. But then when you look more at planetary health and the diversity that's in the soil and the amount of bacteria and, you know, just different, the microbiome of the soil, it's really important for the planet as like the organism.
Right. And the fungi, the bacteria and the fungi and the mix of that additionally with the water, that's all how we help measure how healthy is the soil. And unfortunately, industrial farming is more focused on yields and other types of things and less focused on soil health. And so regenerative agriculture is really refocusing on soil health so that you can get the best outcomes all around.
Fantastic. So do you want to, did we cover everything? Do you want to say anything else about soil health before we move on?
We didn't quite hit on the biodiversity piece and you know, where we've gotten to with how we do kind of industrial agriculture and a lot of monocropped, you know, acres and acres and acres, thousands of acres of a single type of food growing. That's when you get a lot of weed issues and pest issues, because that's not actually how things would normally go in nature. There's like too much of one thing. And then this, you know, imbalance starts in the ecosystem of that farm.
Yeah.
So being able to consider and grow lots of different things together and introducing agroforestry practices and cover cropping and just adding more variability into the farm helps balance some of that stuff. So, and then you're going to have different kinds of life that are all going to balance each other. So rather than maybe one pest coming in that we really don't want there, that's going to be really detrimental to a given crop, we have an entire ecosystem of biodiversity happening, and more balance can be naturally had with less reliance on things like herbicides and pesticides. So it's kind of this beautiful weaving that we're supporting by mimicking something that's more natural than you know, thousands of acres of one thing growing.
Yes. And I think for, you know, going back to that 6th grade science class, I think we all learned about biodiversity and how important it is. I think for many people learned about it more around animals. Like if an animal has, the genetics are really, really similar, then if something happens like a disease, it can wipe out that species. And I think for some people, they may not have had the opportunity to walk on farms as much, but most people have taken a walk in the woods. And it's as if you went on a walk in the woods and it was all one thing. It was the entire walk was maple trees, only maple trees, nothing else, just maple trees. You'd be like, this is a strange forest. This isn't the forest I'm used to. There should be ferns and there should be ash or birch or aspen out if you live out in Colorado. There's a natural diversity that I think most people can relate to from a walk in the woods. And it's very similar on a farm, that the more biodiversity, as you said so eloquently, really the more inherent strength in the system, whether it's a forest or a farm. It's really the way that nature works best.
Yeah, the interdependence of all the species. Yeah, strength is a great word. I like that. That's a great way to describe it.
All right, well, let's move on. So we know that soil health and nutrient density are connected, and we talked about that a little bit in terms of vitamins and minerals. And sometimes when we're talking about these things, I think it's really helpful for people to see some data around it. And we've talked about how really the goal with farming for a long time was greater yield, more productivity, bigger numbers, which makes a lot of sense. But consequently, we have seen that nutrient composition of certain foods, and in fact, in this study, 43 foods, has declined. And so what I talk about often in the work that I do as our medical director is that we're not eating the same food that our grandparents were eating. And that certainly doesn't take anything away from filling up your grocery basket with organic fruits and vegetables. I can't wait till our farmers market opens, and I can go head over to the farmers market and talk with some of our local farmers and get fruits and vegetables. But I also acknowledge that there's a shift that's happened. And so this was done at the University of Texas, Austin, and showed that 43 foods showed statistically significant, so this was a study, reliable declines for 6 nutrients. And I just wanted to, talk a little bit more about that and your thoughts around that and what we're seeing.
It's striking.
It is.
And scary a little bit.
Yeah.
It's really pointing to like this direction we've been going in, which sort of invites us to reconsider how we're doing things. And for me and the work that we do at MegaFood, this is extremely compelling.
It is.
And there's not tons of peer-reviewed journal articles yet showing, like, we have a lot of data and we have a lot of hypotheses. So we have a lot of case studies where we're seeing that doubling down and investing in soil health and doing regenerative practices does increase how well plants can absorb the nutrients in the soil. First, the soil is more nutritious, and then how well can the plants draw that out of the soil. I think just the state of consciousness from which MegaFood tries to operate, if we're out there saying like, this is missing, like what's the thing that's out there missing in the world? I think we, rather than sort of complaining about what's missing, which in this case would be really rich data and science on the connection between regenerative practices and nutrient density of a given food, we just want to become that. If we see that as an invitation to
take action, to do something, right?
Exactly. So
yes,
we're really excited because there is data that we have, and we know that there's a problem, and we're working towards being able to show that there are solutions and strategies. And so we're actually working with one of our farm partners, Kauai Organics in Hawaii, and they're already an organic farm. They're already starting with a pretty solid baseline, but we've gone and we're doing a 5-year farm trial that's looking at different regenerative practices and side-by-side lots for turmeric, and also looking at, really extensive soil testing. So what is the impact on the soil health from doing these practices? And what is the impact on the food and the nutrient density of the turmeric itself? And
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that we're looking at the soil health and we're looking at the actual end. I don't want to say the end result, but the turmeric is what's growing, and seeing what the nutrient density of the turmeric itself is. And we're doing this over 5 years. Is that right? You said 5-year study?
Okay. Just in your 2nd year with them, and they're already so excited about the results after just a year of some of these practices and having cover crops and things. And so I can't wait to see where we're at 5 years from now.
I can't either.
About this later in our deck, but I can't wait to publish the results, and we hope to publish in a peer-reviewed journal and just get the word out. So
yes, and I thought that this would be a good time to dig a little deeper as we're talking about this study and using regenerative agriculture with Kauai Organics, our farm partner, doing that. What is regenerative agriculture? I mean, like soil health, it's something that people are talking a lot about. And I know from chatting with my friends that they have a lot of people have a sense of what it is, but not a strong foundation. So I thought that would be something we could talk about. What is regenerative agriculture? What does it mean? And how is it any different than organic or the same? Or those are some of the questions I hear people ask a lot.
So regenerative agriculture, even if you just think about the word, it regenerative, right? Yes. Regenerating. And, you can think about the word sustainability, and that's like, the word sustain sort of reminds me of like
keeping things the same, sort of. Yeah.
And so I don't know, I have kind of a no, even just around sustainability as a goal, because I don't think that's enough. So regenerative agriculture points to regenerating. So we're talking about soil health is like, coming down over time along with nutrient density of food and, different greenhouse gas emissions and things like that from that type of agriculture that's industrial. So we're actually regenerating, going the other way. So
right. Putting more in, right? Regenerate, like put more in than you take out.
Starting with the soil, but putting more in order to increase the health of it. And it happens to be this win for all. I mean, when we focus on the health of the soil as a goal, we do get really great. We have to use less inputs like fertilizers and pesticides. We have, like we were talking about, more drought resistance and flood resistance, and we're sequestering more carbon. So it really ends up supporting everything, including the biodiversity and including us, because we get to eat healthier food. And we get to keep growing food in soil because we're not killing off of our soil and ruining our topsoil with sort of more industrial practices. So that's what it means at large. And a lot of people have questions about like, what's organic versus what's regenerative. And organic is really a standard that is an absence of certain types of practices.
Right, like no pesticides, no herbicides, more of like the absence.
It's practice-based, and it mostly points to things you can't do in order to qualify as organic. For regenerative agriculture, the goal is simply increased soil health. And there's definitions around that, what it looks like, but how much carbon can come down, what kind of water does it retain, what's the type of microbes are there, and what's the livelihood of those microbes and fungi. And so anything that moves towards that counts.
So like cover crops, I think of as part of regenerative, right?
There are practices. There's like a handful of core practices that can be used that get you there, but anything that gets you there is and regenerates your soil. If you can show that year over year your soil health is
getting better, improving,
and it's regenerating, and that is a regenerative agriculture practice. So it's a little less limiting in some ways, and there's just a lot of freedom. So like a lot of farmers, if they can't use a pesticide because they're an organic certified farm, it's a limitation. It's like you're taking something out of the toolkit, because if they have a pesticide, take care of it, in one way. And the way that I like to think about regenerative agriculture is like giving all of the tools, and then each individual farmer in each individual region with different types of crops they're growing get to have every tool at their disposal possible to move towards soil health. And when you're doing that, you naturally are going to run into less issues. You're not going to have so many pest issues. You're not going to have as many weed issues. You're going to have more water. You're not going to have to put in so much water. So That's
So
what,
with getting healthier, regenerative agriculture is improving the health of the soil year over year, over time. And so maybe we can look at some characteristics of like, what is healthy soil versus unhealthy soil?
yeah, healthy soil, like I said, is going to pull down more carbon.
Yes.
And that's basically used as like a food, as a nutrient in the soil.
And I love, sorry to interject, but I love that reference back to photosynthesis in science class. Because I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that diagram. And like most of us have learned this at some point, and that also it just reiterates this is sort of the natural cycle of things. This is really this is nature's cycle. It's not really anything new. In fact, it's sort of going to
thing.
going back to really how the earth has always worked, and plants and carbon being drawn down. So yes.
That's really how indigenous cultures have been growing food before we went into like a really more industrial model. I mean, this is how food was grown. Foods were put together, and everything was considered, all the different cycles and seasons around the soil, and what types of foods you were growing at different types of year, and all of that stuff was considered, and it was a truly holistic model. And so that's really where we look for a lot of this wisdom.
Right. So increased soil carbon, increased water holding capacity. We talked about that, and also infiltration, soil aggregation, and soil life. We talked about all the bacteria and fungi, and then it's this whole amazing world of this microbiome, and nutrient availability and retention. So things that we've touched on. I think that, for me, I'm a visual learner. So when I see something like this, it really solidifies it and makes it really clear about what we're looking for.
Yeah, when there's a bunch of great documentaries now, like available on Netflix and some of the other streaming platforms, but when you see the difference between like rich, dark soil that's wet, it's like a sponge, it holds so much, and it's sort of teeming with life, versus like really dusty, dry dirt.
Right.
I mean, it just takes that for you to understand the difference of what we're talking about here.
And this came from Kiss the Ground, this image.
This slide came from our friends at Kiss the Ground. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, no, I love, we actually we have a pretty small garden, but it's robust and it's really healthy. And I love in the spring when everything starts coming out, some of our herbs regenerate, like our lemon balm and our thyme and our rosemary. And then in the soil, there's always lots of worms and all kinds of, little bugs and everything. And I always think like, this looks good.
Yeah, in the regenerative space, the amount of worms in a given piece of soil is one of the main things you can look to for how healthy is your soil. Earthworms is a really, really good indicator of soil health, actually.
Awesome. Well, I thought next we could talk a little bit about our Healthy Farm Standard and our farm partners that we work with, and just what we're doing with that farm standard, and how it really is a partnership with Bega Food and the folks we're working with.
Great. Yeah. This is really our flagship program. I mean, this is a core program in our social impact department, and we worked with farmers to develop it. And really what it is an invitation. It's a scorecard, and we're checking in every year, how's water conservation going? How's pests going and weeds? Asking questions about soil health. We're really gathering a lot of deep information, but we use it to have conversations with our farmers about how we can support them in moving towards this. And so it is a scored survey of data on all the different farm practices, everything from labor to conservation practices to soil health. And what we're really doing is opening up conversations about what's the farmer currently working on, where are they looking to move towards more regenerative practices, and how can we facilitate that. And that's what the partnership's about. It's really about opening a conversation about how we can support each other. They're helping us move towards our goals of a more and more regenerative supply chain. and healthier food, and we're helping them, and we're able to do that in various different ways. And the farm standard process is how we discover those ways in which we can support our farmers.
And just to clarify, is this standard like one standard across the board that has some individual customization, or how would you characterize that?
It is a standard that's sort of across the board that has customizations, and we do add things over time. So we're on like our third version of it, but it's loosely based. We were founding members of the Soil Carbon Initiative, which is creating a standard around how to measure soil health. So we did borrow very heavily from that, and then we sort of gave it a megafood touch.
Got it.
Yeah, it's very heavily based on soil health, and then additionally, supporting thriving livelihoods is a big part of what we're interested in, especially this year. Farm workers are really the backbone of our food system. They
Absolutely.
get all of our plates, and
Yes.
they're the original essential workers. And between COVID and fires in California, we're asking more and more questions about how to make sure that everybody at the farm and everybody in that entire cycle is well supported, including farm workers. So we have a lot of questions around that in our survey as well.
So building the soil, conserving resources, and supporting thriving livelihoods are those three key areas that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's the cornerstone of the different sections of the scorecard, and each one of those sections gives us opportunities to understand where farmers' challenges are, and then we're able to figure out how we can help.
Love that. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit earlier. I just wanted to touch on it again, and I love this photo of Kauai Organic Farms.
Isn't it gorgeous?
It's beautiful. I feel really grateful to have been there and talk about healthy soil. Take a look at that soil. You can just see it, how healthy it is. But just to go over that again, we're really asking the question: do regenerative practices result in healthier soil, one, in more nutritious food, two? So we're doing this 5-year study. We have partnership with these great soil researchers, and it's exciting to get to work on this and move this forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's like groundbreaking research. No other supplement companies that I'm aware of are doing soil science.
I don't think so. Not that I know of. I mean, if so, fantastic. Join. But I think right now as far as I know, it's just mega food, and I'm just what an opportunity to get to do this.
And this really came out of our Healthy Farm Standard program. So like talking with them about what they would like to see. I mean, they wanted to do some studies and do a pilot. And so we're able to fund it for them so that they're able to do it. And I just have to say, Jordan, the farm director at Kauai Organics, he's been taking photos of the test plot. So this is the actual test plot. So that's actual turmeric growing that will be the exact turmeric that comes to us in New Hampshire and goes in some of our products. And he's such a perfectionist that he's even nervous about us using these photos because he doesn't think they're good enough.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what that says about him as a photographer, but a lot of confidence in him as a farmer. If you're that much of a perfectionist, I notice I really trust Jordan because these are some of the most beautiful pictures we have of some of our.
They are. Well, Bethany, the time just flew by. It's been such fun really talking with you about this. I know we're both really passionate about this work. There is more on megafood.com if people want to read more. And there's more conversations to come. So thank you so much for taking the time today and talking about healthy soil, healthy food, healthy people.
Thanks for having me, Erin. It's always nice to spend time with you. And thanks for everybody's interest in this.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Erin and Bethany, for presenting with us today. And thank you everyone for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and watch for more Natural Grocers presentations coming up. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay.